So we built, we had this alpha system. We started running this thing in June. We stopped running it last Wednesday. We started running a new system that we actually built with panels here over the last few months. And it does everything is like a whole new world. So everything is different. So first off, it allows us to create sort of any kind of use case, at least that we can imagine on the fly. So one of the obvious ones is just binary classification. So like a lot of agencies want to know just very basic data, like is people or non-people, indoors or out, daytime or nighttime. So this just gives you a very coarse way at very low cost to put maybe like 10 images on screen and have the workers just classify them really quickly. And then from that we can automatically fork new tasks. So one of the obvious ones is semantic tagging, and this is an example of a Magnum image. It's got a caption. There's an autocomplete pattern here. The worker starts typing something. It looks to the left and the right and brings back, the appropriate concept. They pair the concept. We run that through a plurality of workers, aggregate all the agreements, then run that through more workers who decide whether the agreements are accurate or not, and that's sort of the process. So that's one. Here's the people counting task. Really simple. It turns out lots of agencies have very odd ideas about people counting. One in particular had used the term, if it was less than 5, they used the term few, which like no user would ever understand. So you have to basically, at the level of 8 million images, go back and recode all that. So, because it's few 1, 2, 3, 4, right? It was just, for them, it was anything less than 5 was few. IPTC, you might know about this if you're in the media. This is the International Press Telecommunications sort of standards for how news media is coded. In the area of photography and multimedia journalism, they're interested in sort of subject, location, event, person type information. They have a very obscure systems for encoding that. And so we mapped all of those systems to their semantic equivalents, and now when people run, they can annotate. This is an example, I think, of a location. So we mined about 306,000 locations from Wikipedia. Yes?
Sorry to interrupt you, Flip. Are you actually paying for these people to do this? I'm trying to get.
Oh yes, yeah, we pay. This is all running on Mechanical. This is all running on Mechanical Turk, and we're paying workers to do this.
Have you thought about doing it in a game format?
We have.
How do you monitor the quality?
It depends on the task, actually, because different tasks, like the keywording is sort of like a multi-label problem. It turns out to be a little bit difficult to monitor that on a purely algorithmic basis. So we actually use more workers to monitor the output of, we use a quality control round to monitor the output of the annotation round. And those are just things that we chain together in the workflow. So this is just a use case where we're looking at keyword relevance. This is actually a real use case where you have an image that was labeled a cat and woman and restaurant. And it's hard to see here, but it's clearly a restaurant. There was clearly a woman. I challenge anyone to find a cat. But that was like what it was labeled. And so the idea of just go through there and kill the keywords. It's sort of similar to search, like a search relevance task. So what does all this do? So we've put, since we started now, 33,000 documents back into the index for Magnum. These are two Google Analytics graphs from, so of the 500,000, we put 33 back in as a result of this annotation. These are two graphs from Google Analytics, one from the period of March 24th, 2010 through April 10th, and the other is March 24th, 2011 through April 10th. And if you look at that, there's about a 25 to 30% increase in traffic as a result from this artificial activity. But perhaps more importantly than just pure unique, turns out to be the impact on straight up SEO, inbound traffic from search. So for that same period in 2010, 0.086% of the industry, 0.086% of inbound traffic was coming from as of 24th to 10th of 2011, 28%. That's with only 33,000 of when we started the problem, the domain of sort of, we were trying to solve had to do with sort of internal search. People that sort of end up at the search engine that are looking for images for sort of like licensing, right? But very quickly you figure out that the domain of the problem actually is a web scale problem, right? It's about what happens when people go to Google and search for those things, because that's how you end up getting there. And what was happening to Megan was, people were being left out. I think like a lot of, this is not unique. If you go to other famous photo agencies or big video libraries and you do sort of site searches on their library, you find out that they're not represented either well or at all in search engines. And part of that is a design problem with their sites, and part of it is an annotation problem. But the thing I think that's really sort of impactful is just how much of a difference properly annotated annotated assets, or annotated assets with sort of little semantic payloads so that Google really can make sense of them, can mean to a business. One more final piece. There's a sort of famous series of lost and found stories we're compiling, which we're really excited about. So beyond just the purely empirical search got better, things have been found that were lost. And this is a story Megan Young found. She's sitting in the audience. It's an American graffiti story. It was shot by Dennis Stock during the making of American Graffiti, digitized and lost. And it's been lost until like last Wednesday, when the Turkers uncovered it. So we're excited about that. We've found this with individual images all the time, but never with a full. This was a 21-shot photo story that just was completely invisible. So that's just sort of like one of those cool serendipity things that happens that makes it all seem remarkably worthwhile. So that's my presentation. Thanks very much. Oh yeah, sure.
Have you thought of expanding to things other than media?
We have.
Like?
Check the release date.
Like?
Like, for example, text.
Well,
Take a case in point. I run AngelSoft, which has startup company stuff in there. People tag startups. One of the big problems is the taxonomy of figuring out what is it a Web2O startup, is it social networking, is it whatever. Whereas people will search for different kinds of things. I have to figure out a way to sort of automatically tag not just whatever the entrepreneur thinks it is, or an arbitrary investor thinks it is, but somebody else thinks.
Yeah, so when we had this idea that the software needed to be much more expressive than it was, we sat down with panels and worked for a little while to sort of sketch out an architecture that would allow us to sort of deal with sort of any kind of addressable information, anything that you could find at the end of a URL or any kind of an object. So whether maybe it's a web page or a site or something, that we could sort of make sense of that, pull that into a process, put it through a workflow, and output some sort of sensible structure. So we built the foundation for that. For us, the low-hanging fruit tends to be media, because I think, as Lucas pointed out, I have this experience in this industry, and I know lots of people at big media companies that have big problems. But it's just it's a starting point for us, right? But the design of the architecture of the platform, is such that I think we could go other places with it.
So we should probably keep moving and
So we can take it offline.